All right. So we are joined today by citizen journalists and activists CJ and Nick Cruz, who are also co-founders and longtime hosts of the Revolutionary Blackout Network on Rumble, YouTube, Rockfin, and elsewhere. And do Dissidence, Hard Lens Media, and RBN do a sometime show, the Post-Duopoly show. It used to be regular. Now we do it when it's relevant, when it comes up, when everybody can get together. How you doing, fellas?
What's poppin'?
What's up?
What's poppin'?
What's up, bro?
We got the Post-Duopoly show on the Jimmy Dore Show, man. This is dope.
That's it.
Also, so I do want to shout out for everyone don't know, Hard Lens Media. YouTube has taken out Hard Lens Media.
Yep.
They are part of our Post-Duopoly network. They're taking out people who are telling the truth. So we have to have massive, uncritical solidarity to Hard Lens Media right now. Who knows when they're going to take us out? So
why?
Kid, just know we got your back. We got your back, kid.
Wait, why did they?
One day you're handing out pizza on Skid Row, the next day you're getting it.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen here. So Hard Lens Media, definitely join them over on Rumble. Go on Hard Lens Media, subscribe to them. That's we were doing a show for over a year now, and it's just terrible what's happened to him. But he is still over there on Rumble. We're still making efforts on YouTube, right? Still making some efforts.
Yes. Yeah, he has like a backup channel, but of course it doesn't have, the traffic that the original channel.
Right.
Absolute solidarity to him.
Yep. So we were just talking about me and CJ finally met in person last week, but everybody forgot to take pictures. We went out. Jimmy Dore was very nice. He took us out to a club where he was playing and some other great comics, but we all forgot to take pictures. And I'm going to tell you something that's going to surprise you all. Me and CJ were about the same height, man. I was so relieved. I was so relieved because normally, look, man, when you're 5'5", normally when you meet people, it's that situation. You're like, hey, what's up?
I thought I was gonna
man?
be 6 feet. I'm not quite 6 feet, but yeah, I was shorter than Rome. So you don't want to meet Rome, man, because Rome is like 6'1" or something.
Oh, is it? Well, so's Keaton. No, that happened to me when I met Keaton, man. I had no idea Keaton was up there. I was like,
how tall is Keaton?
He's about that. He's about 6'1".
Oh.
Yeah, I know. You wouldn't think it, right? Because you don't know. You're just seeing everybody from shoulder.
I'm shorter. I can't believe they're that tall. I don't know. Smaller.
Kurt, you're about what I would expect.
As much as I want to see pictures, look at you guys living in the moment. No phone, no camera. So even though you guys didn't get the picture, it's just good that they're living in the moment.
That was like old school.
That's why we didn't get it.
Before everyone had to take a picture of everything. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about your origin story. So, Nick, you started out on the Bernie campaign for real. Like almost everyone in this space passed through the Bernie campaign, but you quit your job for the Bernie campaign, right?
Yeah, back when I was young and dumb. I don't regret that at all because I spent that time radicalizing many people in my community. That's when it was a good time to spread awareness on stuff like war, like stuff like Medicare for All, like stuff like increasing wages of people and calling out the corrupt Democratic Party. The only thing I regret is misleading people into thinking that Bernie Sanders and their failure of a movement was going to fight for it. But it's extremely important for us to be in the movement and talking to people. That's why we still do mutual aid to this day. But I got started with the Bernie campaign because I was like, man, I saw Joe Biden as an option. I see the neocon Democratic Party. I'm like, bro, we got to take them out. Like, everything we see with Joe Biden right now is predictable. Do you guys know that in 2016, they said that Hillary Clinton was going to have a more muscular foreign policy than Barack Obama?
That phrase.
Like, what?
And they said it like a good thing.
The drone strike king? Like, how is that possible?
Muscular.
Apparently, that's a genocide. If you're more muscular than drone strike king, that would be a genocide. So what we've seen with Biden, what we will see with Hillary Clinton, it is crazy to see Bernie people fell in line with that. Still to this day, it still shocks me to see people support them. But to answer your question, y'all got started with the Bernie campaign. As a citizen journalist, like I always was a man of action, and at that time, I believed in that movement, so I wanted to get involved and talk to people. And it's like that experience radicalized me in many ways, and it showed to me like the failure of the professional managerial class, Democrat adjacent activists, like the average Bernie Sanders Democrat. Like even me on the campaign, I'm seeing them praising Joe Biden. I'm seeing them calling good friend Joe. I was getting criticized for going after Elizabeth Warren, and that was planting the seeds that these people are frauds. And now RBN, and we had a show post-duopoly. We were the post-duopoly left. So we started RBN. Unlike many channels that got propped up because they were part of the Bernie wave, we got in post-Bernie Sanders as people was depressed. People didn't know what to do. Remember, we don't know what to do. People quit in politics because we had the option between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So then we come up and introduce a concept that no one in independent media was ever talking about, mutual aid. We were the channel that unapologetically advocated for revolution, which scares people. I still give Jimmy props to this day because he was on our channel, one of the few people who advocated for revolution. Yep. That's what he said. Meanwhile, you got people like Ola Yemi, Conscious Lee, and a bunch of sellout, pretend progressive PMCs that releasing videos about why we shouldn't have a revolution and why we should support a Democratic Party. So RBN, we paved the way. We are post-Bernie. You guys are part of it, the post-duopoly network. We want to establish mutual aid in a new way for the left to think. So I know we're long for there, so I'll pass it back to you, my brother.
Well, it's why I say there's kind of a third wave of commentators that are much more street level, much more working class, much less PMC. Because I think if that's where you're coming from, we didn't think of doing this because you just don't see yourself that way, right? If you're from the PMC class, you're used to being heard. So as soon as they saw, oh, there's a platform, well, of course people need to hear what I think. The working people, we waited. And then after a while, I mean, speaking for myself, and you probably had a similar experience, I looked at these people and I said, these dumb motherfuckers have channels?
That's exactly what happened.
Me, I'm a Johnny Harris guy.
Exactly what happened.
Yep.
That's exactly. I'm a college dropout, and I reported on the Ukraine war correctly. Meanwhile, the people with master's degrees believed that Zelensky was fine for democracy. Like, I didn't think I could do this, but when I saw the clowns that was actually doing it, I'm like,
that's it. That's it.
Why not get the facts right?
Right. It turned from why me to why not me. This moron.
Right. And
you got freaking Kyle Kulinski giving an opinion, and I can't get the fuck out of here, man. I'll start a channel.
That's actually how
so CJ, how'd you get into it?
Yeah, that's actually how I got involved. It was just the pandemic. Locked in. I didn't have anything to do. My background at the time, it was like video production, so I was actually on the set of a series that we were about to shoot. We was like on a day 3 of a shoot, and then got locked in. And then I did have a lot of personal things in my life that was like crashing down. So I just reached out to the Twitter community, and being already sort of political just in my thinking, I latched on to the people that were talking in the same way that I was talking. Nick was one of them. Rome was another one. Ryan Knight was another one. Some of the first sort of voices in this space. And I just kind of, this is where I want to be. And believe it or not, I started out with even identifying as a social democrat. And now I look back on those days, a couple of years, maybe 3 years ago, and I'm far from that now. But it came from a place of necessity. It felt like when I was locked in, when it was the pandemic and we were forced to stay in our homes, it felt like it was a necessity. It felt like no one else was speaking in the way that I would be able to hear it. So I wanted to get out and be that voice that a person like me would hear. And I just began making recorded videos. I used to dress all suited and booted. I used to be all, collared and tie and like that.
I remember the fly CJ days.
Yeah, so I used to dress like that, and I might take that. I might bring it back one day. But I
missed that. I missed that.
Gentleman CJ.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I didn't have that name at the time. Nick is actually the one who gave me the name, and I can fast forward to that story. We were meeting. We used to be called the Fred Hampton Leftists, and we were like, hey, kind of introducing each other. I was like, my name is James. And we had another James. He's like, I'm James too. He's like, okay, well, how about nicknames? Then I said, okay, well, I go by Jay. And then the other Jay was like, I go by Jay too. And then Nick was like, all right, you're Compton J, so CJ. And that's kind of how it happened. and that's now it's history. But that's how we were brought together. It feels like it wasn't at all forced. It was like, this feels right. We literally just did a show, and then at the end of the show was like, it was either me or Nick, and I was like, this feels like this needs to be more than just this show. And we stopped at the end of the show and was like, we need to do something more with this, and that's sort of how it developed.
Well, and you know, I told you this the first time I came on your show, man. Your show reached me. That was one of the things that actually inspired me, seeing your show. Which it's just amazing to be interviewing you here now, because I think we all were inspired by Jimmy too. And
this is crazy that we're here. This is crazy that when we were talking,
does Jimmy know who's on his show right now?
You know, the lockdown you mentioned, when that happened, that's, you know, it's basically everybody's being imprisoned, so you have a lot more time to look into shit.
That's exactly what happened, man.
Because you have all this time on your hands to do your own research like you're not supposed to.
How dare you?
That's what happened, Kurt. That's actually what happened. I started reading more. I had the time. I had the time to actually not just read a headline, not just look at Rachel Maddow. And forgive me for saying this, believe it or not, I used to watch Rachel Maddow religiously. That's how far I've come, just by simply knowing the topics, knowing the subjects more.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, you know my story, man. I came into 2015 supporting Hillary. I was a Clinton person.
Jesus Christ!
You didn't know that? I definitely mentioned that on Post Waffle.
He has.
I came in a Hillary supporter. Rachel Maddow, I literally said the words in my life, Rachel Maddow is the person I most want to have a beer with. I literally said those words. I literally said that, man. That's the worst thing I can admit now. That's the worst thing I can admit. And now, years later, I'm getting dragged out of her events screaming at her about why she won't stand up for the Muslims on the network.
And why won't you have that beer with me?
I don't think that beer is going to happen now. All right, so as everybody knows, today is MLK Day. And as everyone would expect, everyone wants to claim MLK today,
FBI
including, worse than the FBI, including the state of Israel. I shit you not.
Oh my God.
I shit you not. This is from the Israeli embassy. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate.
Oh my God.
Only love can do that. Now that's from the man himself. And then they go on to say, today we mark Martin Luther King Jr. Day and remember Dr. King's legacy of peace, tolerance, and equality. I couldn't believe it when this got sent to me. Keaton said this to me. I was like, I say, you are fucking with me, man. You can find Martin Luther King Street in the center of Israel's capital.
Oh my God.
Hashtag Jerusalem.
Oh my God.
Minutes away from Abu Tor, a mixed Jewish Arab.
Is it one of their worst streets? Like
that's a street with all the potholes on it.
Why is Dr. King's name a curse on streets?
No, that is talk about. I mean, they'll just hide behind anybody, man. Look, we got a street.
Wait,
we got a street. How bad could Israel be?
How long has it been there?
That I don't know. That I don't know. I would imagine.
Russell, we were just sort of talking about this earlier on our stream and that how the Martin Luther King holiday, we love celebrating his birthday. That's great.
Right.
But the actual holiday has become this sort of cesspool of people co-opting who he is and what his message was. I mean, this has got to be the largest co-opting that I've ever seen of Martin Luther King from the state of Israel. But people
in the middle of a genocide.
In the middle of a genocide, they have the audacity. But you see this a lot in the media class where they love to project, Martin Luther King this, Martin Luther King that. But if Martin Luther King was alive, I always say this: if he was alive, he would be an adversary to them for the things he was advocating for the worker. Worker. And that's what I believe he was murdered, actually. But go ahead.
Well, you know what? Somebody else did the courtesy of pointing this out. What won't be discussed in America today is that in 1967, immediately after the Six-Day War, Martin Luther King said on national TV that Israel would have to leave the territory it had just conquered.
That's genocide.
And that's anti-Semitism. I think for the, this is his quote, I think for the ultimate peace and security of the situation, it will probably be necessary for Israel to give up this conquered territory, because to hold onto it will only exacerbate the tensions and deepen the bitterness of the Arabs. And here we are.
MLK is a Hamas? I didn't know MLK was a Hamas, apparently.
He was a pioneer. He was a founding member of Hamas. It's just amazing to invoke the name of someone, even that aside, somebody who's associated with nonviolent resistance, as you're killing thousands of women and children at a rate even beyond. Children are dying at a rate beyond the rate of the Holocaust. And you have the nerve to invoke Martin Luther King Jr. on this day. And I always point this out whenever they pull this. It's a mixed Arab-Israeli neighborhood. Okay, so let me explain that.
That's not good.
All right. They always use that fig leaf whenever this comes up, that they're an apartheid state. The Arabs they're talking about are some Arabs that managed to hold on through the Nakba, which was the mass expulsion of 750,000 some odd Arabs out of their homes. And their descendants have a form of Israeli citizenship, not a full citizenship. They have a form of citizenship. They use these people as a fig leaf to pretend they're not an apartheid state. But if you are Palestinian, you can't, if you're not one of those people or a descendant of those people, you cannot get Israeli citizenship even by marriage. Even by marriage. So this idea, no, it's not an apartheid state because we have Arabs. They have some Arabs that they use to hide behind, the way they hide behind the Holocaust whenever you call them out, to pretend they're not an apartheid state. Fellas, you want to weigh in?
As the Ethiopian Jews that was forcibly sterilized by the state of Israel, how much they appreciate using the MLK quote. Because there's nothing like Martin Luther King Jr., nothing that represents the energy of Martin Luther King Jr., other than forcibly sterilizing Ethiopian women and telling other immigrants, do not breed with our Jewish women because they don't want to dilute their blood. That's in the spirit of MLK, right, Russell? Very revolutionary.
Yeah, well, that's...
And now you guys see...
Yeah, that's a lost letter from the Birmingham jail, right?
Now, this is exactly why I hate MLK Day, and this is what I was saying on RBN. I quickly grown to hate MLK Day because I came from sales, so I never got MLK Day off, so it was a useless holiday. And now MLK Day is essentially used as a way for neocons and the most corrupt swamp monsters in our government to rehabilitate their image using someone who was anti-capitalist and anti-war. Fam, we had John McCain who tweeted about MLK back in the day.
Yep.
This is what they do. You have Hakeem Jeffries that's tweeting about MLK Jr. I hate MLK Jr. Day. It serves nothing. We talk about our revolutionary leaders all the time. I don't need a month. I don't need a day. I don't need a holiday. RBN as our channel, and what we need to do as a community is uplift our revolutionary intellectual leaders. Stop following people like Barack Obama. Stop following Jay-Z. Stop following Beyonce. The Black community had their mind poisoned by the pop culture, by worshiping Black politicians as celebrities. We need to go back to our radical revolutionary roots, and that is what RBN is. MLK Day, that is just a day where scumbags like John Lewis used to prop up their record. You know John Lewis, the civil rights activist that created the slave trade in Libya? But he's going to tell you a story about how he met MLK and they were friends, though. The Black class sold out to capitalism. They destroyed Africa. They bombed Africa. They sold out the Black people to real estate development companies and the police state. And then they had the nerve to tweet about MLK. I hate this day. We celebrate his birthday. We celebrate MLK the man, like we do every single day. But his holiday is trash. The same way that Juneteenth is about to be trash.
Oh my God!
You had Joy and Reed. Joy and Reed.
I was gonna say, but do you still believe in Juneteenth?
Joy and Reed doing the Juneteenth panel, and I'm supposed to be excited about that. A millionaire black panel talking about how we should vote for Joe Biden, celebrate Juneteenth. That's what they do into holidays. The only thing they do is hijack our black culture, water it down, and turn everyone to a black neoliberals. That's what they do. And RBN, we don't stand for it. That's what we call these people out first and foremost.
Wait, did you guys not know what mattering means? You get holidays.
Mattering.
That will, yeah. Remember the FBI last year?
Yeah.
They had the FBI, the ones that spied on him, had a whole Martin Luther King thing on all their. I don't know. It was like around the time.
I mean, look, Israel is going on. Damn it. I mean, you can't make it up. So this article is actually pretty good dealing with some of what you're talking about. Even though he's revered today, MLK was widely disliked by the American public when he was killed. 75% of Americans disapproved of the civil rights leader as he spoke out against the Vietnam War and economic disparity. And that's something that they really never talk about.
Why do you guys think that Jimmy Dore Show is the only show that invites RBN on? Why do you guys think that is?
Look, because
why do you think that is?
We don't want to be put, they don't want to put on a list.
They don't want to visit from the Mossad. But go ahead with what you wanted to say.
My point being, they're gonna look at MLK now in hindsight. They look at Malcolm X in hindsight. They look at Fred Hampton in hindsight, and they're like, man, these was great revolutionaries. They really scratched the Overton window. They really caused a ruckus. And then black radicals that do that today, that follow in the tradition. Remember, we're Fred Hampton leftists. The people who follow in that tradition are hated today. If Fred Hampton Jr. was alive today, they would call him Red, Brown, and Lions. If Malcolm X was alive today, they would call him one of the Moss agents. And as white America pretends that they look up to these people, the political statements that these people made had them hated. The same reason that RBN is hated, because we take these controversial stances that many people are uncomfortable with, so many people don't invite us on the show. And as the people don't invite us on the show, they then come on and talk about how much they love black radicals and MLK, even though modern black radicals have politics that make them uncomfortable. So I think that applies today with white liberals not only having disdain towards MLK, but they have disdain towards black radical politics. We don't agree with everything, and obviously Jimmy Dore Show don't agree with everything that RBN says, but what they say that the fact that Jimmy Dore Show is the only one who is brave enough to air our opinions out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's to me, and let me speak on that, because this is something RBN talks about all the time when people want to bring up this Jimmy Dore derangement syndrome. Is like Jimmy Dore platformed us. Did you? Crystal Ball? Did you on Breaking Points? Jimmy Dore donates to our mutual aid events sometimes. Do you do that? Like, it's like a person who's showing us, improving solidarity. You want us to exchange that for your rhetoric. Like, it's not a trade-off. We want tangible goods. And Jimmy Dore's allyship right now is giving us a tangible return. So that's how we view it. And that's how we're always going to view it.
Well, and there's something else I think people don't realize since you brought it up. You know, we don't just talk when you see us. We talk outside of here. And when we have disagreements, we talk about it. Well, you think we never disagree? What do you think? Everybody just goes along? No, man. If there's a disagreement, we all talk about it. With Jimmy, everybody talks. He's not, you know, the impression you get from certain people that, you know, you can't do that. No, you just can't come like an asshole.
Well, as long as just Jimmy is Irish in the conversation, it'll work out.
Well, that's it. You know, you get some Jameson, and no, man. I mean, look, we work out. There's shit we work out that you don't see. All right, so it's not what a lot of those people with the derangement syndrome have. In fact, I mean, look, I'm like freaking Charlie Bucket here. I'm the guy who like won the golden ticket. I was a fan, right? Who's sitting here hosting the Jimmy Dore Show.
Yes.
So yeah, man.
That's crazy.
I heard it. Yeah. Jimmy had more to do with red pilling me probably than any other single person I was watching when I was going through that transformation from being a Hillary person to being someone who'd be screaming at Rachel Maddow. Like, a lot of Jimmy's content had a lot to do with kind of explaining to me what was going on. And, you know, I can only speak to my personal experience, but I think that's your experience too. Like, having actually gotten to know the person for real. A lot of the things that you hear, I don't even understand how you could know him and come to that kind of conclusion. What you hear, the grifting, all that. You spend 5 minutes with this guy. If you have any common sense in your brain, you know everything coming out of his mouth is exactly what he believes with absolute conviction.
I don't think people know what grift
that
means.
Doesn't mean you got to agree with everything somebody says. But that's something else, man. If you understand this space, the way to grift is you go full Pot Save America, or you go full Daily Wire. That's the way you grift. Yep. Doing this, you're risking your channel every day. You think the way to grift is to start getting into these kind of, I'll say it gently, health issues, things like that. That's the way to grift. That's the way to grift, to keep poking the bear every day like that.
Who even claimed whose name I would even mention? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm not naming any names, but people know what we're talking about since it came up, and I know there are a lot of people in the community who have questions about this, and I'm somebody I'm somebody from that community who's sitting here, and I can tell you it's not what those people say.
Have you not watched him alienate politicians?
And if it was, believe me, man.
It ain't access journalism, that's for damn sure.
Right. That's the way. The way to grift in this space is don't say anything interesting enough to get thrown off YouTube. That's the way to
have politicians on and kiss their ass. The way to grift to have politicians on and give them tongue back interviews. I had Marianne Wilson on our show, and she called me a mansplainer because I pushed her on the Israel-Palestine issue. That's what happens when you're not trying to grift. Well, people who try to grift, they attend Marianne Wilson's wedding, and then they tell you that she's an agent of the working class, even though she's a millionaire white woman who tried to sell people self-help books.
Look, look, man.
She said, listen, honey.
Give Marianne her due. Give Marianne her due. I think we manifested all this. I just think she would manifest. I wish she would manifest a real campaign. That would be nice. If you're into manifesting, why don't you manifest a real campaign? But I'm very glad we've manifested here together. All right, so just getting into this a little bit. According to an early 1968 Harris poll, the man whose half-century of martyrdom we celebrate this week died with a public disapproval rating of nearly 75%, a figure shocking in its own day and still striking even in today's highly polarized political climate. White racial resentment was still a critical factor at that point, but Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s unfavorable numbers were at least 25 points higher in 1968 than in 1963, and his faltering appeal over the final years of his life was also a consequence of appearing to fall behind his times in some respects, even as he was leaping well ahead of them in others.
Okay, what's this? I can't wait. The thing of needing to be of your time. You know, like, oh, I've heard people say outdated comedy, for example. And I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean you?
This gets into how he started taking up union causes, and that's when he started to have problems.
That's what's out of touch?
A day after
labor.
Exactly. When he started getting it a day after returning home in December 1964 from a tour whose most important stop was Oslo, the Nobel laureate for peace joined a picket line at Atlanta's Scripto pen factory where some 700 workers were striking for better wages for less skilled employees. Though it was a remarkably humble gesture for someone who had received such a lofty affirmation, King's actions that day and his call for a nationwide boycott of Scripto products won him few friends in his hometown's white, staunchly anti-union business community. While still involved in the Scripto affair, King sat for a Playboy interview with Alex Haley, in which he endorsed a massive federal aid program for blacks. its whopping $50 billion price tag was, he pointed out, less than annual U.S. spending for defense.
That's less than...
now that's less than we send to Ukraine in a month, right?
Their weekly allowance.
Such an expenditure, he argued, would be more than justified in a spectacular decline in school dropouts, family breakups, crime rates, illegitimacy, swollen relief rolls, rioting, and other social evils. Many poor... Now, this is the part that really scared him, and what scared him about Fred Hampton, too. Yeah. Many poor whites were in the very same boat with the Negro, he added, and if they could be persuaded to join forces with blacks, they could form a grand alliance and exert massive pressure on the government to get jobs for all. King had made passing allusions to this possibility before, but a straightforward call for an active biracial coalition of have-nots was just as terrifying to white ruling elites, be they on Peachtree Street on Wall Street, as it had been when raised by the populists in the 1890s. Now, that's something that has come up again and again in American history. There have been many junctures where poor whites and poor blacks tried to get together to challenge power, and usually they've used the technique of telling the whites, well, you'll have it a little better if you come with us, and broken up that coalition.
They go to schools they go to all the best schools to learn how to do that specifically. Like I can't remember what, it's some Roman treatise on how to divide the populace against themselves. And if you went to a good school, that's what you learned.
Right. Well,
I actually think this is the reason. This is my only point of view. This is the reason why he was actually killed, not because of the racial stuff. Yeah, remember, obviously. He had already passed all this legislation. So why would they wait till he's already hit his finish line at that time to get the legislation passed and then kill him once he starts to organize? This, to me, is what the establishment fears the most. Absolutely. Is white people and black people coming together to form poor whites. I should add, poor whites and poor blacks coming together. We don't want the crazy bourgeoisie that's teaming up with the establishment, but those in the working class coming together, black, white, of all shades, not just black and white, but in particular, it scares them if black people and white people are in a coalition. And maybe Nick can speak to why you believe that is. I've heard you kind of discuss this before, and I love how you discussed it, but why is it specifically black and white that scares them more than like a black and Hispanic, a black Asian, or a white and Asian? It's black and white that puts fear in their eyes. Just don't know.
And let's go to our conversations at the post-Duopolis show. Remember, Russell, when I explained how I have massive disdain towards identity politics? People who spend their time pushing the culture war, I view as deeply unserious. Not only are they deeply unserious, they're doing the bidding of the capitalist class. Right. That's to answer your question. Well, so when people focus on class and they ignore the differences in culture that we have and form together, that's a threat. That's why they push these people. These people got giant YouTube channels. All they do is talk about the culture war because they want to divide black America and white America, because there's a lot of different cultural tendencies. And this is why MLK is extremely terrifying for the establishment. We went from a leader that advocated for militant class solidarity and uniting the working class, and now we got a black leadership class, a black bourgeoisie class, whose number one priority is defending a Harvard president who made a mistake of not advocating for censorship enough. Their number one concern is defending Claudine fucking Gay, as black people are being crushed by the police state, but that's the number one issue they care about. That's how our community have been distracted by identity politics and the culture wars that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party play along with. Now, another thing I want to add to this, another reason why white America hated them, obviously the class thing is giant. That's everything when it comes to this. But the Vietnam War was another thing when he came out against the Vietnam War, and militarism. When you combine those two, and I don't think there's an answer where you can say one was more impactful than the other. I think both class and stand up against war got him killed. But we went from MLK, who stood up against the Vietnam War, and now we got Hakeem Jeffries and black leaderships who want to arm Nazis in Ukraine. How the hell did that happen? I mean, that's what we do at RB, and we analyze, like, how could something like that possibly happen? Went from opposing war, and now the black leadership class support Nazis in Ukraine. And Go ahead.
Oh, you're watching any of those? I watch all these prison YouTubes, ex-prisoner kind of. And so California, this is the most racially segregated prison system. And
the prison.
Yeah, and then you got, every prison has this, I guess, but like your trustees and shot callers, and that's what all these people are that try to enforce the identity bullshit. Those are the trustees of the big prison that they're slowly building around you. As I get any walls, you just get it online or have everybody else filtered out, and you're going to stay with your own kind because that's easier to control.
Right. Well, let me ask you guys, do you feel, because I was listening to MLK's after Vietnam speech, and I feel this way across the board, everyone got stupider. Like, you listen to that and the depth of intelligence and knowledge and philosophical heft in his speeches, and that's true of a lot of your great figures of that period. And today, I mean, you look at someone like Barack Obama, who has skills. There's no depth to any of his stuff, right? I mean, there's nothing there. It's just the figure of it. It's the vague shadow of a memory
I can't
of what
remember,
a great, meaningful speech used to sound like.
You're right, dude.
And there's just no substance.
I can't quote one line.
So, right.
What is American culture? Like, this is a rhetorical question. I would say American culture is anti-intellectualism. Like, anti-intellectualism was
I hate nerds.
On us. Yeah. How dare you guys do your own research? Remember? They demonized you for doing your own research.
Right.
They demonized you for looking into stuff. Like, the average person came in to define terrorism. They just call everyone a terrorist. They can't define it. Most people don't know what international law is. Most people don't have no idea what they're doing. This is weaponized by the ruling class. This is why at RBN we talk about how we need to weaponize intelligence. I advocate for people reading theory. If you don't have time to read theory, you need to watch someone who read theory. The working class need to be intelligent. We need to have strategies how we move. We can't just be vibing. The Bernie left has just been vibing. We need a strategy. We need to be militant. The Black Panthers, they wasn't just effing around vibing. They had a plan. Every revolution has a plan. We need to reject. I know it can sound elitist in some way. You know what I mean? To say that people must learn stuff. Because the general society, like, oh, who cares? We don't know anything. People are just happy in their ignorance. No, the working class must reject anti-intellectualism. We must learn our history. We must take everything the government says and assume they're lying. We must learn media literacy. We do propaganda report on RBN. We did it a few times on Post-Duopoly Show, where we just watch stuff that people view as real news, and it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
There's no media literacy. Yep. People have no idea when they're reading propaganda at all. And this has led to the working class being destroyed. That led to us having a massive police state. If you wonder why we got 800 military bases and how we get away with it, we get away with it because people don't know what the hell's going on. The ruling class weaponized anti-intellectualism, and this is something I have been unapologetically fighting against. I am advocating for the workers to learn, to read. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. I don't care if it sounds elitist. They want us to be dumb, and we got to fight back against it. But go ahead, Russ.
You're right. And I mean, something that I remember when I got involved with the Bernie movement, and I'll be curious to know if you heard this too. You have those old 60s radicals who never sold out, who never became yuppies. Yeah. A lot of them would say to me, you're wasting your time. This whole political two-party thing, that's not where it's at. Get involved in grassroots, get involved in mutual aid. But this is going nowhere. Did you have that experience?
That's what radicalized me to the point where I'm at right now, because the failure of the Bernie campaign. As I mentioned earlier, I was a sweet, sweet summer child. Yeah. I looked at...
That's what Nick, let me just say this. This is what Nick says about a naive person. Kind of like, poor baby, like sweet summer child. That's what we use.
And the reason why I say that, because I looked at the professional managerial class left, and I'm like, okay, I'm a college dropout. I don't know anything. These people are scholarly. Yeah, they read history. That's what I thought. I thought they had a legitimate plan. They studied neoliberalism, and they know how the best way to attack neoliberalism. So as someone who don't
getting funded
who wasn't by educated, I was following those people. I was like, all right, they want Medicare for all.
Did you have that experience of like these old 60s radicals would tell me this at the time? They were telling me I was naive to get involved with the Bernie campaign. Like these people who have been doing it since then. They would say that.
Been to a fish
they would
show
say that
not?
to me. Like Well, how do you feel about Jerry? All right, guys, I want to make sure not to run out of time to get into the great activism you are doing. So let's go to Super Chats, and we'll come back.
Let's do a quick break.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit